And with that, we're live. Welcome, one and all. Welcome back to the Light 'em Up Lounge. Welcome back to Puro Sabor Virtual 2021. It is our seventh show. Can you believe it? It's been a couple of weeks, and I couldn't be happier than to welcome tonight's special guests from Drew Estates, Mr. Jonathan Drew himself, and the one and only Pedro Gomez Rodriguez. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you so very much, man. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much. Like I said before, been very excited about this program tonight. Thank you for having Drew Estate with you.
The pleasure and honor is all ours. But before we get to it, let's welcome the one and only late night riot live from Dubai. Brother, I know it's very late over there, or early, I should probably say. But thank you as always for your tremendous dedication, for joining us and for hosting this wonderful session together with me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's been such a beautiful ride. It's been an amazing one. And what makes it all great is for us to have the amazing people of Drew Estate, Pedro and Jonathan here. We're very, very, very excited about today's session. I can't wait. It's been one of those sessions where no matter what questions you prepare, you wake up in the morning and like, wait, I got to ask him this and I got to ask him that and all of that stuff. So I hope you gents are ready because we have a great show coming up. And what's better to do than to actually start?
So, right, I believe you just have to fire. I mean, now you've got everybody excited and ready to roll with all your prepared questions. So the stage is yours, brother.
Perfect. Excellent. So I've been on a lot of sessions with Pedro and Jonathan, and they provided a lot of insight. Obviously, Drew Estate is there's so much to learn, and there's so much information about the journey that they've had from John's humble beginnings, and I am so impressed by how proud he is of those humble beginnings and how those humble beginnings did not change him, and in fact made him a better person as far as the industry and as far as the growth that he's experiencing to where they are right now. This is a company that started from humble beginnings, moved to a cult brand, moved to a trust brand, and today it is a global brand. So to set the stage right from the beginning, give us an idea about how Drew Estate went through this to reach what it is today. I know it sounds like a very simple question, but I'm sure you can speak volumes about it. But if you are to put your finger on the key points, how did you go through this? And Jonathan, can we start with you?
Sure, brother. Thank you so much. Wow. I often talk about the transition, I guess, from a cult brand to a trust brand. Through so much of what we do in any industry, in any business, it's so highly transactional, especially these days with the ease of just e-commerce, the internet, everything else. But that transformational piece to it of the shift or the differentiating between transactional to transformational, as I've got older and look back at our, like you said, humble beginnings, we always had this early vision for, I guess to say really simply, believe it or not, just to change the world and to do something great, to do something good, to fit in without losing our style, our swagger. That's just naturally, who we are. Starting from the humble beginning piece and learning a craft. It was really a what we say a baptismo de fuego for me and for us at Drew Estate. Things were not easy. Decisions were made in sacrifice. If we do this, then we can't do that. Oftentimes it was, I was the last person in our company to get medical insurance, or not being able to pay a bill or not have a car and have to walk from the little factory, our little house at the time. Those type of very hard personal one-on-one, intimate personal decisions. So just with that, just like many of us who started businesses or who took a business that was failing from our parents or from our family, whatever, and having to rebirth it, phoenix it, right? For Drew Estate side, we didn't know really who we were until 2000. We started the company in 96. I started off as a retailer at the World Trade Center after the first bombing, the World Trade Center 93, when they reopened the World Trade Center in 96, 95 or so, 96, we started off there. And from a retailer becoming then basically a manufacturer's rep, an independent rep, to a distributor where I would buy cigars and sell them, owning publications, but always everything was scrambling and not really having a dedicated purpose as to why we're on this earth and why this company was really born. It was really about the passion and love for cigars as just a smoker, as a cigar consumer. And at the time, me being in law school, working at the largest law firm in the world at night, 10:30 to 7:30 in the morning, basically through the evening, and then going to law school and having my antique shop on the weekends, I was just really searching in a lot of ways for purpose, and doing the things that I loved, but not really as a young kid, pretty much in my mid-20s, just trying to find a platform that obviously I always knew I would make money. I've always made money. Since I was 14 years old, I made money. And I wasn't really overly concerned with that. It was really about being able to make your parents proud, being able to have a place in society, but at the same time, not losing that innate New York swagger, that thing that made us special. And my little crew and I, we started Drew Estate. Really, the for me, the turning point was opening. I wouldn't call it La Gran Fábrica Drew Estate at that time. It was a little greenhouse that Pedro is very familiar with. Old man Trini, who's since passed away. We opened there, and probably around 2001 or so, a Forbes article came out. I think we were doing at the time about $300,000 or $400,000 a year in business, and it was called Cult Brands. Now check this out. Ready? On the cover story, it was Cult Brands. It was Apple, Krispy Kreme, Harley Davidson, and Drew Estate. There was no iPhone. There was no iPad. Check this out. There was no what was the first one where you could just listen to your music?
iPod.
There was no iPod. You understand what I'm telling you?
Yeah.
This was like Apple raw. And I bought the stock for $3 a share, okay? And I had $3,000 worth. And that article that came out, I remember reading the article and saying to my business partner, Marvin, look at that. We're a cult brand. And the two of us being like, yeah, we're smoking a spliff. We are a cult brand. That's what we are. And it took somebody to define for me and for us who we were, because it's very hard to look in the mirror when there's no mirror. When you're just scrambling transactionally from transaction to transaction, connecting dots, but not necessarily collecting the dots. So that for us in that early beginning piece, was just very raw. It was Ramones' first album. It was Rolling Stones' first album, Run DMC first album approach. You're just going to throw chairs, break a bottle, throw a bottle. You're going to get to that next day. And that was our earliest approach, was that transactional space. But what we started to happen was we started to be identified as a brand, first and foremost. Are you a brand or are you a company? Very different approach to both and very, very different conclusion on both. So that cult brand space really made a lot of sense for us because we were very rough. We were this diamond, but we were so rough around the edges and we were so street that we needed just this organic way of self-defining ourselves to understand, wow, we are important. We all of a sudden we have value. And meanwhile, you're doing $500,000 of business is very little money, but it was the beginning. So that transformation from that cult brand to trust brand really is very sad. Because you go, well, how could that be sad, JD? What are you talking about? You went from, one factory to 2 to 5 to 11 factories that hugged the whole center of Esteli. All of our factories were Centro de Esteli, the center area, Esteli Central. How can that be sad to all of a sudden create the world's biggest factory, most beautiful factory, a factory of, and I give it, Carlito and Fuente, I gotta say, I give them a lot of props. So let's just call it like a top level tier. Why is it sad? And it's because what happens is it's about Socrates, and I talk about it a lot, and I'm a philosophical guy, is we always were not the status quo. Right? We were this, we were the thing that should not be. And now when you've become potentially the largest factory in the world in terms of premium cigars, and people know Drew Estate, they don't know who the hell, some of them don't know who I am or Pedro or anybody else. They smoke cigars once a month when they play golf. What are you smoking? Oh, Drew. I saw 2 dudes at my parents' place. I had to take an Uber back from the Ritz here in Miami, and the guy had a Cuba. I was laughing. I thought, but when you've become the status quo, that is something that for me is it's somewhat sad, and it's dangerous. So there's a beauty behind, from a business perspective, if you're going to speak at Harvard University and talk about cult brand transformation to trust brand for me, Johnson & Johnson, trust brand for me, DuPont, trust brand for me, Puma or Nike, right? And it depends on what category you're talking about, but it comes with a price. It comes with being that thesis to the antithesis, right, which strikes the thesis and usually does not stick. But when it does, when something is so powerful, when a movement is so powerful, so organic, so undeniable, that synthesis that occurs is the transformation of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And what the result is from that synthesis is a new status quo. And where I was young and saying on the road, when people were buying Drew Estate cigars, being like, yo, you don't need to smoke Altadas. There's too much of that. They're too big guys. General cigar. We hitting hard right here, Drew Estate. Now we're in a position like that. So it's a very dangerous place to be. As beautiful as it is, it also is dangerous at the same time. And it's very easy for a company to lose their soul and not be grounded anymore. So I believe our challenge as we move forward through this metamorphosis is to be able to retain our roots. So you look at the water in Esteli and you say, oh man, that water is flowing high. Look at it, with great rains this year. And me and Pedro stand at the back of the factory and the water behind our factory is flowing strong. No, to the naked eye, yeah. But is the organic matter below the trees in the farmland that holds the water and retains the water, is the organic matter there that retains the nutrients? And that's the piece that will be a challenge for Drew Estate as we continue to potentially grow. And even if we don't grow, it's just so it's beautiful and it's alarming at the same time. And Nicaragua continues to be our call to arms. Nicaragua continues to be our soul. And that's why what I always try to do from my side, because the company's grown way beyond me, and we have to remember that who we are and what we are is heavily tied to New York, and it's heavily tied to Nicaragua. So when we have meetings, we talk about we're New York centric and we're Nicaragua centric. And it's those two things that keep us tied and down, and that anchor strong. So I thought about that a little bit and wanted to share that with you, that, pain and joy, beauty and sadness, it all kind of mixes together. And that's the journey of life. And there's really a couple of sides to it.
Amazing. Amazing. A lot of info to process in there. But Pedro, what are your thoughts?
Man, I think, being with Drew Stay for the last 15 years and seeing when Jonathan was telling you guys about the 5 different factories, 8 different factories, 11 different factories, he was talking about the houses, the little houses that we were renting in downtown Esteli. So put it in perspective, when you start up with a factory, probably, you got the money to buy the piece of land to build a humongous facility. But when it comes to Drew Stay, we were renting a little house in downtown Esteli, and that was Drew Stay 1. And then from that little house, we went renting houses downtown Esteli and, trying to operate as a premium cigar factory in 11 different places is a challenge. So for everybody that has been with Drew Estate since day one, they are still with us. And we have been growing together within the company. And I will say that it has been one of the most beautiful journey that I have been part of.
That's amazing to hear. Can I just touch, Jonathan, on one point, which is the last part that we spoke about in my question, being the global company. If you look at the typical definitions, and I love how you get very specific and very scientific about business matters. If you look at the definition of a global company, it is a company that has production. Okay, fine. It exists in different countries and what have you, but it's also first and foremost a company that has multiple production locations or capacities in different countries or different jurisdictions. Proudly, your production capacity is Nicaragua, but the fact that you are in the process of being considered a global company, yet you have a single place of production, how does that make you think? How does that make you feel? Because you're literally not writing the book, but definitely changing the definition.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. So, college, I took a course. It was called Multilateral Corporations in World Affairs. It was very interesting. And you just brought me back to Oneonta, New York, where I went to college, which we termed as Stoneonta, and I was the chief of Stone facility. And, that's a nice question. When Drew Estate's production, top to bottom, is in Esteli, Nicaragua. But remember, we are the largest importer of tobacco into the country. We use tobaccos from and have grown for us and are very on hand, very present in Honduras, Dominican Republic, Brazil, Mexico, and in each of these countries, different tobaccos. If we're in Brazil, we're not just with one tobacco, like an Arapiraca, something is Arapiraca, and a Mata Fina, and a Mata Sol, and a Mata Norte. We are deep in the countries. So from a standpoint of multiple manufacturing areas, you're right. But from a standpoint of the countries who participate in the raw materials that we source, what we do just in the United States is unprecedented and heard of, whether it's Kentucky tobacco, Florida tobacco, Connecticut tobacco, Pennsylvania tobacco, tobaccos from Virginia. And then in each of these tobaccos, when you think about, we always talk in these kind of well, first of all, I wouldn't say in these kind of shows, because this is very different, very distinct. That's why I'm so excited to be here. I've done a lot of events over a lot of years. I particularly enjoy these more, there's a European feel to it, a Nicaraguan feel to it. I always love working, obviously, with Ricardo as well, and making sure that we think globally, and with our Nicaraguan positioning, our GPS there. But Drew Estates really, not only are we, this is so interesting because not only are we not fully realized our global position yet, right? But we're so local. We're so big, but we're so local. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Our street in Esteli We're in outside of Esteli Central is a very large barrio. It's called Rosario. And in Rosario is a neighborhood called Oscar Gomez. And in Oscar Gomez, on the outskirts, because of Drew Estate, is an Oscar Gomez Dos. Our street, that the streets in the street, we actually made the pavers, the adoquin, to build the streets because it was just dirt. And then the government came in as a partnership with Drew and the Alcaldía, which is our government in Esteli, which we love, who's been incredible to us, built the roads there. Our street, we have people all over the street, you name it, across the board, and we protect that street. That's our block. That's where we hug that block. So we're very local, and it's not just one block, but it's an area. And that type of locality, that type of local thinking is something that I think that it will take a really long time before we're able to think like some of these European style companies that really are very interesting to me. I think that's a big part of the journey, brother. So I don't think we're there yet. We can sell cigars. Obviously, we sell cigars in the United States, and we're still, even inside the United States, we're still considered an East Coast company. And we often take complaints about that because when you think about the barn smokers that we do, and for those people who don't know, it's about 1,000-person event. You come to the barn, a tobacco barn that we work with here, either in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Kentucky, Florida, Louisiana. And we do these huge events in these barns, and even they've gotten so big. I used to do them standing inside the barn, and me and Pedro and my ex-wife, Marielos. Then it grew to the point where 1,000 people show up, you have to be outside the barn. But we receive a lot of complaints that we're so East Coast centric and we're so New York centric and East Coast. So I think that, like, when I really think about these companies that are, 100 years old and 150 years old, I think there's a big piece of that, back to the other question of that trust brand, but also, like, as owners pass the business down, not just selling it, but actually die. And the business, continues, and then the business gets sold and the business moves from Europe and here and there. The journey for us in a global position is just begun. I often say it, Pedro and I speak about it, is when I'm dead, that building at Drew Estate, La Gran Fábrica, número uno, número dos, tres, and now coming number four, those buildings will stand strong after I'm dead and gone. And that's legacy. And I'm deeply, deeply concerned and motivated by legacy and learning to understand global positioning of a brand, of a company. And again, that also backs us against the wall to brand versus company. So I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're global. I know we're big. I know that we're a powerful company and we have leverage and we purchase a lot of tobacco, and the farmers want us to be happy. And they say, hey, let me show you this first, because they know Drew Estate's going to come in and not just buy all their super strong Ligero, which, they're like, hey, I am a farmer. You want my Ligero, you have to take my Viso and my Seco. You have to buy the full crop, not just cherry pick the best, what I call the best, meaning the strength plants, which are always the most sought after. That provides Drew Estate with deep leverage. So I think that there's a lot of learning. I think we don't know close to everything, meaning, like, we're at the very beginning. When I see these Dutch guys are unbelievable to me because they're Renaissance guys, and they're nurtured in global thinking, and they speak 5 languages, and they can travel throughout Europe or into Indonesia or Africa and know where they are, not just from a standpoint of having a driver take you where you're going, but there's something that's really deep about that. And I think that that's like one of the hidden jewels of Nicaragua, is that it's just little, even though it's the largest country in Central America, it's just like little Nicaragua. But really behind that, you start to unpack it and peel that onion. And you look at world affairs and how Nicaragua fits into world affairs and Cuba fits into world affairs. And wow, it's like we are an infant and in a very early stage of understanding at Drew Estate. We're at a very early stage of true, forget capacity, because we're tremendous in what we do from a standpoint of market segmentation, creating products for segments that not only don't exist. Everybody talk about the seed and where it's from. That's what I was saying earlier. The seed, oh, this is a Cuban seed, this is a Criollo 98, Criollo 99, whatever seed they're talking about. And then where the plant of origin is. Okay, if you think of mezcal and you think of why you can call it, why Mexico stands so proud of that, or Champagne in France. But, you know, I just feel as though we're very early in this book, and that's the beauty of it is, you know, it's we're not global yet.
Jonathan, I love the fact how you speak about the success story of Drew Estate on the one side, but Nicaragua in a larger context on the other side. The success story of Drew Estate is directly interwoven with the success story of Nicaragua as a manufacturing country. But in retrospect, what do you think were the key steps in putting the country in the #1 spot when it comes to manufacturing premium cigars?
You know, that's also a beautiful question. I can't stand when people talk about being at the right place at the right time, because you can be at the right place at the wrong time, the wrong place at the right time, and the wrong place at the wrong time as well. And any type of multiplicity effect cutting through that in any way to slice it. But there was something that happened, and when you read a lot about, I write about Mecca to Medina, and as I get older, I get more, I guess, religious in my own way, as I've embraced, I wouldn't say Islam to its fullest, but certainly, you know, digging deeper in that direction. Nicaragua was going through some metamorphosis that was, I hate to use the word privileged, because these days people change the word and it's used in so many different ways, but lucky, privileged, smart. When we landed and planted our flag in Esteli, Nicaragua was this secret jewel. It was tobacco from a tobacco perspective first. It was this best kept secret. Nicaraguan tobacco earned its place and had no medals, no badges, no moment of prestige, because it was all being ripped out and stolen. It wasn't being given credit for the people, the tobacco, the culture, the naka tamales that you ate before you made the tobacco, and the culture. And so when we came to Nicaragua, for me, I realized, wow, we are so lucky. This is so fucking cool. I realized this was the time to not do what's already been done before me. Simon Camacho and Tricky's father, Bermejo, Don Tricky Bermejo's father, Francisco Bermejo, and Joya de Nicaragua folks back in the early days, and all of the early pioneers, many of which whose kids, who are now in their 50s, work for Drew Estate and worked for Joya before us. I was wise enough to recognize that we needed to do something that our industry does well, but we didn't give Nicaragua its respect, which is tell the story. Drew Estate didn't create fire curing. Drew Estate did not create stalk cutting. Drew Estate did not create tobacco culture in Nicaragua. But what we did was, first thing we did was stepped back and galvanized a concept, which is Nicaraguan tobacco is the strongest tobacco, the richest tobacco, and I'm very careful about this because some people love Dominican tobacco or Cuban tobacco, Honduran tobacco. It's all beautiful tobacco. Whatever you like is the best one. But we knew that what we needed to do is tell this story. And I think that what excited guys like Nestor Plasencia Sr. or Alejandro Martinez Cuenca or Mario, who works at the factory at Hoya, or Oliva, and I mean the Oliva family, as well as the Oliva brands, and this is before Pepin came to the, this was early on. The old Cubans, when they saw that it was something that they were able to quickly, old man Padron, they said, wow, we haven't been telling the story. Let's tell the stories of Nicaragua. And that became this very special moment because the cigar boom was crashing in the United States. It was crashing, and I'm talking 97, 98. We just started to come where you couldn't give cigars away. People were selling cigars at half price. It was crazy. And this crash was happening in the Dominican Republic, was going through an incredible crash of a business, of an industry that went up so fast and so big, so quickly. And the people who were coming in say, oh yeah, put $50 million for a factory, $35 million for a factory, have them send in $45 million of tobacco in from the Connecticut River. And this was happening. All investments were taking place in Dominican Republic, and corporate money, real money, was coming into the Dominican Republic. So a bunch of scrappy individuals were in Nicaragua. And at that precise moment in time is where Nicaragua had the opportunity to really plant its global flag and tell that story. And Drew Estate was there to do that because it was the beginning of the internet revolution, the internet explosion. When I started, or not started, but when I was one of the 5 starting members of an internet company in 1992 that went public at a very young age, there was 242,000 people on the interweb. Boom, when I started law school, when we started this company. The next year, there was like 650,000 people. And we had predicted over the next number of years, you'll have X amount of millions of people on the interweb. Think about that. Nicaragua's story being told, the cigar boom crashing down as Dominican Republic was going through its pounding, and Nicaragua was going through a grand awakening, and the story being told. All of those things combusted together, and then people said, holy shit, when I smoke a Padron, I mean, when you smoke a Padron Aniversario, that is like beauty. It's magic, right? And it was like, now you didn't have to hide somewhere and say, oh yeah, what are you smoking? Oh, it's a Cuban cigars or Dominican. No, it was, I want to tell you I'm smoking a Nicaraguan puros or a Nicaraguan cigar. So those 3 things that came together was Drew Estate's communication skills and its ability to storytell, like Biggie Smalls or Nas, to be able to tell that story, which we learned through hip hop and rap, because that's what it's about. It's about who can tell that story with class. And then, of course, with tempo, with rhythmic pentameter, and that culmination of those things together, and it exploded. So we were very wise, and we were very appreciative. I don't know. So that's to me. Pedro, what do you think?
Well, I think, when it comes to Nicaragua, as Jonathan said right there, it's about not just one company, but it's also about many different companies. It's not just about Drew Estate or Joya de Nicaragua. It's about Padron. It's about Perdomo. It's about Pepin Garcia, Pete Johnson, guys that probably they were not well known back in the days. But as soon as people start to realize the potential that Nicaragua has producing raw material, the best raw materials, without respecting the people that love Cuban cigars, Jonathan said, Dominican cigars, Honduran cigar, you start to see the movement. And I do remember that it was right around 2009, 2010, when the Nicaraguan cigar started to take off. First off, it was right here in the United States, where a lot of people start to see the potential of amazing brands coming from Esteli, Nicaragua. And then you start to see other companies from other countries trying to catch up with the movement, trying to come up with brands that will highlight the name of the Nicaraguan. But right before that, they were already using Nicaraguan tobacco. So how you can stop a movement like that when you have one of the best raw materials coming into the market? You also have a very well experienced cigar makers and cigar manufacturing and tobacco growers in Nicaragua. So as Jonathan said, the ultimate step will be to tell the story in an efficient way, effective way.
Now, we spent a lot of time in the previous Puro Sabor sessions talking about the fields, the pre-industry, the raw material, and the manufacturing. And Jonathan and Pedro, you beautifully depicted all of these things sort of culminating and coming together as the core, which is also the core of our session today when we talk about marketing in a larger perspective. So the one thing I'm really curious about, Jonathan, in your perspective, what is the heart and soul of marketing?
Well, I have to be careful because we have definitions of what is a global company, and I can only tell you what is marketing to me. Pedro can tell you what it is to him. We probably have a lot of similar thoughts. For me, marketing. What's the difference between marketing and messaging? What's the difference of marketing and branding? What's the difference of marketing and living? It's very interesting how Drew Estate. You ever heard of guerrilla marketing? Right? What the hell does that mean? Like, I remember that shit had to start in New York. All right, this is a very international group right here. But I would question whether anybody doubts that guerrilla marketing did not start in NYC, the Rotten Apple, because guerrilla marketing was based on street team activity. Wu-Tang Clan. Guess what? I don't know how many of you guys listen and gals listen to Wu-Tang Clan. It's irrelevant to me because I listen to it. It's just irrelevant. But street teams, the concept of a street team, was something that I remember when I learned it early on from Wu-Tang, from the RZA, who owns the Wu-Tang Clan, and his brother Power, or his Power. Marketing has classic definitions to it, and it could mean, I guess, a zillion things. But for us, being able to tell your story, communicate it effectively. Yeah, I still just thinking about that question. For me, brother, is marketing in terms of, just think of it like this. You ready? We were talking earlier about the seed. I was talking earlier about the seed. I was talking about the country of origin where you grow the seed. Very rarely do we talk about the processing of the seed from a standpoint of, you walk into a humidor and you're going to see all the tobacco, all the cigars on the shelf are dark air cured tobacco. Whether it's Cuban cigars or Dominican, Nicaraguan cigars, they're all dark air cured tobaccos. But in terms of market segmentation, making a brand, whether it's an infused brand or a coffee infused brand or a fire curing tobacco, I mean, actually taking tobacco and hanging tobacco in a barn, up high in a barn that goes so hot that every year one of those barns catch on fire, to the point where you wear a full mask, a full body suit and a mask, and you can't take more than 5. I can't take 5 or 6 seconds in the barn. And then you fire cure for 6 days on, 1 day off, 6 days on. And what you result with is this tobacco that smells like a very peaty bourbon, a very peaty whiskey, like the most peaty whiskey you've ever smelled in your life, not from Japan, from Scotland. That's just peat, dirty. And then you say, people in the premium industry don't do that, right? What did you do? You created a what? A new market segment. Now you say to yourself, that's not enough. What can we do to just turn it even upside down. Now you take that tobacco, you bring it to St. James Parish in Louisiana, and you shove 500 pounds of that tobacco into a 53-gallon barrel that held 53 gallons. Let me tell you guys and gals, 500 pounds of tobacco don't fit in a 53-gallon barrel. So we use car jacks, like when you lift your car up to change the tire, and we jack the tobacco down so hard that it presses that tobacco down so hard that over 1 year, we turn it 3 times, and that tobacco turns into a syrup, like honey. And that emulsification process that takes that tobacco and does that, what you need to do in Nicaragua, you need to take 8,000 pounds of tobacco, and you need to press that tobacco down for 2 to 3 years using that pressure and adding water and airflow and moving that pilon from one pilon to the other. So the point of it is what? The point of it is marketing is one thing. Market segmentation and be able to actually do it and tell the story is another thing. And for me, that is something that the cigar industry, where we at Drew Estate, we're able to really talk about this journey, talk about the creations that we do. And, you know, I mean, like I'm an art collector, an avid art collector. People know that about me. I've been for a very long time an avid art collector of old school graffiti. I'm not talking about pieces that are $1,000 or $2,000. I'm talking about really serious, significant pieces that the museums have and go into Red Bull shows. You can only make up so much bullshit. And for us, I think that the cornerstone of great marketing is great work product, whether that's from the form of art, or whether from that's artesian product, or whether that's from creating Bitcoin or creating blockchain or a Tesla driven mind. And I think that type of you know, exploration is what creates a platform for you to be able to market, for you to be able to. That's a hard question, brother. I tell you, it's because it's so broad. But for me, it's all about authenticity. And if your authenticity is there, then your foundation is supported, you have the evidence, and you're able to tell that story. And it doesn't take a long time for people to go, got it. I got it. You've connected dots in a very, in a very easy way to understand.
You just made me think of something when you, first of all, mentioned the authenticity, but also that process of taking the material, squeezing it, pressing it until you get that golden, juicy liquid out of it. Isn't that the essence of marketing as well? That you take everything that's there and you press it until the golden liquid, the essence of it all, comes out in its most authentic form?
Yeah, I mean, that's you're seeing from what I was describing, my perspective. The other side of it, my brother, is there are many companies, and I don't discredit them. I truly do not. What they do is they look and say, all right, you know what we need? We need a Connecticut shade cigar at $6 to $8 so that we can be in that zone of, there's a huge clientele of people who buy $6 to $8 Connecticut shade cigar. I call that white space. All right. I don't give a rat's ass about white space. I like blue oceans. Blue oceans. That's where, and Christopher Columbus, believe me, I get it from a political standpoint. If there's a lot of people who don't love Christopher Columbus, but it's just from a theoretical space, creating your own destiny, charting off in your own direction. There's two very different things. There's marketing from a standpoint of formal marketing where you're really just nothing bad about it, but it's very vanilla. And it's about looking for space, sell the product in that space that gives you the biggest bang for the buck, highest and best use, and all of that is fair game. For us, I think that speaking really on Nicaragua, When we started the Nicaraguan Cigar Festival, Pedro, myself, Marielos, when we created it, and we sat down, the three of us, at Cigar Safari in the backyard, Pedro knows.
Yep.
Valencia knows. Everybody knows, because it's the truth. We said, every 15 minutes, let's list what people are going to do every 15 minutes for 3 nights, 4 days. And we couldn't tell Drew Estate's story any more than Plasencia or Joya de Nicaragua or the other factories there, Natsa at the time. We had to look at marketing Nicaragua to the world, because we always had to look up to Cuba and say, hey, whoa, this is a marketing machine. Is a marketing machine. The tobacco substantiates it. Tobacco is incredible, changed the world. Always have respect for Cuban tobacco and Cuban cigars and the stories behind it. What happens when you hear the story of Fidel got into a taxi and the guy was smoking that, gave the taxi driver, give him the cigar, and he created the brand Cohiba? That's the story I heard. Man, that's something that sticks on your ribs like soul food. And to market Nicaragua, all we had to do was tell the stories that was there. We didn't have to make up a whole bunch of bullshit. And that really, I think that's just, we're at a time now in Nicaragua's golden age, and sitting in that day and creating the Nicaraguan Cigar Festival and creating the board of directors and creating the day that we said, what will the charity be? What will the charity be that we create for that will take the money from the people come to Nicaragua and we'll do an auction? What will we use that money for? That was the day, I believe, that Alejandro Martinez Cueco, and maybe it was a little before that, we were already, that was probably the day that he decided that Drew Estate would be his distributor for the United States. Because that's the beauty behind everything. Behind everything for us, I think, is we have to say we're a great company. We have to say we treat our people well. We have to say that we create opportunity and that we're going to believe in the future of Nicaragua. But at the end of the day, is that Nicaragua is the base, and you have to protect the base, and you have to grow the base at all costs. So there's a lot mixed into it for that. I'm sorry that I went on about it. It's good questions.
That's great. We've touched on a lot of very key points. We've touched on Nicaragua. We've touched on marketing Nicaragua. We've touched on a lot of the aspects that are associated with being in the business in Nicaragua, including supporting of local communities, being glocal, if you may, and focusing on what you can do back to the community. And being a person, going back, and excuse me for zooming in on you repeatedly, but there's something to be learned from the whole process. Being a person, again, that started from the beginning, had a thought in his mind, was hungry, creative, and went on doing something. There's a great component of culture creation here. It's the blend of marketing and culture creation. My question to you is, where do you see that going today? And excuse me for saying this, I don't mean any disrespect. When you said, when I am no longer there, those buildings will continue to be there and will tell the story, say the story, and we'll talk about the legacy. Where is marketing as far as Nicaragua is concerned, as far as you're concerned, as far as you can see it? Where is the combined efforts? Because obviously Drew Estate is doing its own, very hip, very on the edge. New York inspired kind of marketing as far as the Nicaraguan industry is concerned. But where do you see that going from a Drew Estate point of view? And where do you see it going from a collaborative point of view as far as the Nicaraguan cigar companies as a whole are?
Yeah, good one. So you guys ever see the movie Rocky? Old school.
1, 2, 3, 4. No.
Right? He fought the Russian guy. He was right. This guy, Rocky. You guys remember who Rocky's trainer was?
Yes. Oh my God.
Mickey.
Exactly.
Do you remember Mickey died?
Correct.
And Rocky, it was kind of like, Sylvester Stallone. It's just Sylvester Stallone comes. Yeah, right. Tell me Sylvester Stallone, stupid. But the character, Rocky, Mickey dies. And Sylvester Stallone, Rocky, is going through this terrible time. Just awful. Losing this and that. I guess, I can't remember exactly. It was a whole bunch of years ago. But one day, Mickey was on his shoulder in a dream. And he says, I'm always with you. And that had resonated very much with me. There's a song, I Drink Alone, John Thorogood. And you guys know I'm a hip hop guy. I don't listen to that much of it, but country style, rockabilly. And he says, I drink alone with my brothers, Blackie and Red. He was talking about Johnny Walker. Mm-hmm. So from a first standpoint is the first piece of your question and your collective of thoughts is, I will always be that Mickey on your shoulder, not just for Drew Estate, but for Nicaragua. Just as Don Jose Orlando Padron, he's right here. He's right here behind me. He's right here in front of me. He never goes away. Never. Never. And that's the first piece. The second piece of it is, where do we go from here? And the answer there, both Drew Estate and Nicaragua. Nicaragua's way ahead of Drew Estate on this perspective. Is what the earlier question, conceptual lens, global. I hear all the time about New World cigars. I actually like the term because the first part of it is it pays respect to the Cuban brands, it pays respect to the Cuban companies, and it pays respect to the Cuban tradition. It's earned its right to be respected. On the other hand, and moving parallel, New World cigars are just finding their footing in every country. In Azerbaijani,
sure,
they're finding their footing, and because of the internet, because of a variety of reasons. I think that as we, both Nicaragua and Drew Estate and all of the companies there, become more sophisticated, and the JDs and the Pedros, who we're gut instinct guys. We're street guys. I know Pedro's mom. She's one of these where she hug you and love you, and she's your mom, and you bring her to the party, and you bring her to the thing, and she's going to be there when Pedro gets his award, right? These corporate dudes, they ain't bringing their little Nicaraguan mama. They're bringing a photo guy, a journalist named Bentley, and he's going to, and that's cool. Because guess what? That journey, that evolution, you can't deny it. It's destiny. You can't get in front of it. It's the thing that it's beyond you. It's way more powerful than you and me. So I have no interest in writing the future at that deep level for Drew Estate, because my role is to create the platform is to educate the people at Drew Estate and some of my comrades, some of my colleagues in other companies on the Nicaraguan side to respect our predecessors and build that future themselves. That's the thing. It's like, I'm not a father of children. I've never had any. Pedro probably has a couple of hundred, but I don't. And I could imagine when your kid goes off to school, or you have to let them go and become the man or the woman that they need to be. And you'll be proud of them, whether they become a doctor or a writer or a guy who runs a Home Depot, or if they're happy. So I think that our story is unwritten. There's something that I do resonate with is the phrase, "it was written." And the writing on the wall, you see behind me, that's a 10-foot piece.
Beautiful.
Graffiti is all about the writing on the wall. And there's a lot of parallels to what we call getting up, which is putting your mark on the wall and being able, or on the subway, or on the train, or on the building, or in the middle of Esteli. When people say to me, "Yo, you guys are all over Esteli. You own Nicaragua with graffiti. But these dudes just went over you. Jesse went over you. Nick went over you. What do you think about that?" Pedro's laughing. Because if they just say, like, "Yo, Nicholas went over your graffiti on the wall." I said, of course he did. He should. Graffiti is not meant to last forever. You had your moment to get up, and you have to celebrate that moment, and you have to be willing and understand that somebody's going to go up on top of you and paint on top of you. You did not get chartered or paid to paint a Picasso on that wall, and that wall be, brought to the Prado forever. That's not the game. So for us, I think there'll be a baseline that was written. Hopefully, we'll be able to continue on that journey where we don't lose our guiding principles, our core competencies, our foundational aspects that would make us different, our local approach. But way more important than Drew Estate is Nicaragua. They are excelling at incredible pace globally, to being recognized as a tobacco of choice, a tobacco of class, which is it's a whole another concept, class. So that's really going to also be very interesting, because my prediction is that in a very short time, Nicaragua will be the tobacco most smoked in the world. Nicaragua tobacco. So, I don't want to get too crazy and shit, but I think overall that the Nicaraguan journey, what I want to see is where Nicaragua is recognized for more than just tobacco, more than just agricultural products. Again, let's not be unappreciative of our agricultural aspects in Nicaragua and what has made, is blossomed both from the tobacco side, cultivation side. But I think that Nicaragua's journey is just beginning. And I think that the future is unwritten as to Nicaragua being the catalyst and the first step into, a very prophetic future. So we have thousands of people who work at the factory. We have thousands of, what's going to come from Nicaragua is going to be a beautiful thing. So I'm very excited also about what the future is for Nicaragua, and not just Nicaragua, even bigger, let's even go bigger than that, which is Central America. I listen to such bullshit when I see these walls and borders and And I'm not talking Republican, Democrat. I'm not into all that nonsense for me. But as Latinos and the Latin culture becomes ever more important, recognized, powerful in the United States, North America, Nicaragua will find its place and its base here. I think it also, what a lot of the Europeans do with sister cities and stuff is very interesting and impressive to me. We don't really do that here enough. So I think it's even bigger than Nicaragua, and it goes to all of Central America, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and even, Mexico, which is not necessarily Central America. I think that aspect of Latin America and specifically Central America's influence in the world, and where raw materials, as you start to see inflation become even more incredibly serious, and I think that the appreciation of the earth and the appreciation of those basic components, there's going to be a lot of interesting future. I don't want to get so philosophical here.
That's again a lot to process there. Pedro, a couple of things that we mentioned here, I would like to use them as a segue to my next question. And one of the most beautiful things about the industry is the amount of women that actually are involved in the industry. And I'm a big proponent of the role of women in life as a whole. I live in a house where I have my two daughters, my wife, the help, and the cats, the dogs, everything are females. I'm the only male in the house, so I have to recognize that. No, honestly. So obviously you're a family man. I love the involvement of your mother in your life. I find that very endearing. Nothing beats mothers.
Absolutely, man.
It's unbelievable. And I'm just gonna touch on something that's considered, I don't know if it's considered risque or edgy or something like this. With all the respect of women in mind, are you happy? Because marketing there's a misconception about marketing when it's mixed with sex. There's a misconception of marketing when it's mixed with the abuse, if you may, of a certain gender.
Yes.
Now, do you believe what's happening as far as cigars and women on social media? I don't want to say do you believe it's right or wrong, but what are your thoughts on how to make this right? What are your thoughts on making it better as far as the perception is concerned of the industry, of the tobacco, and definitely of the countries where this comes out from, considering the amount of females that work in the industry?
My man, that's a great question, bro. When it comes to females, man, I'm gonna talk first, just taking your question from one part. The first part will be, what is the role of women in the origin of countries, like Dominican Republic, like Cuba, like Honduras, in this case, Nicaragua? There is a lot of women that works in the industry, not just the ladies that roll the cigars, not just the ladies that package the cigars, not just the ladies that work in the despalillo, that's where they sort the tobacco, what is grapper and binder, taking out the central vein of the leaf, but also the role of the managing at the managing level. So at Drew Estate, we got this person, her name is Yesenia Moncada. She is one of the most knowledgeable person, not just at Drew Estate, but also in Nicaragua. So people that work in the industry and people that are behind the curtains, they do know who Yesenia Moncada is. And that's the beauty right there when, as a company, I'm talking on behalf of Drew Estate, and I'm very sure that other companies in Nicaragua, they acknowledge the knowledge that these ladies bring to the final product. It is amazing. So from my own point of view, we own so much to the women of Nicaragua. We will never be talking to you if the product wasn't good enough. I will never be suggesting, hey, you should try this cigar if I don't believe that this cigar is extremely good. But because I believe in my heart that this cigar is good, I can suggest super highly that this person is going to have a good experience smoking that cigar. But everything comes to the basic. Who is the person behind of that product, because when you got Jonathan right here, you got myself right here, but behind us, there are thousands of people that make the product happen. Now, in terms of the market, what is going on in the social media? One thing that I will tell you has been the most beautiful thing to witness is that social media has democrat. What's the right word to say? Democratized.
Democratized.
Democratized. There you go. So the cigar is not just a male thing. You see ladies that they love cigar. It's a huge a segment of the market. And that's something that as a company, we have acknowledged big time. So we have, as an example, in behalf of what we do at Drew Estate, we got this particular cigar brand that is called Deadwood. In Deadwood, you got Sweet James, you got Crazy Alice, you got Fat Bottom Belly, you got Leather Rose. And it's not that we are trying to sell cigars to women, because there is a lot of guys up there that they love Deadwood as well. But when it comes to social media, it's about people defining and expressing who they are, what they should smoke, what cigar they should try. But when it comes to how people do it, people do it in different ways, you know. But one thing for sure, I think that when it comes to the role of women, it's beautiful to see what they have done, because I mean, previous to 2010, before Facebook, before Instagram, and before all those other social media, a lot of people thought that it was just a man's thing, smoking cigars in a cigar lounge, having male conversation, you know, in the lounge. But nowadays, you see ladies that go to the cigar lounge, they smoke a cigar, you know, they know about cigars. Believe it or not, when it comes to ladies, they have the most redefined palette up there. And as my own experience, when I was running the cigar safari tours, and you got this group of guys and females that comes, they truly enjoy the art of the craftsmanship of the premium cigars. And when it comes to the time that we do the blending section, and we lay down around 18 different type of fillers that comes from different countries, different regions, different farms, 12 different type of binders and 12 different type of grappers. We tell them, the guys and the ladies, hey, you know, this is how you should do the blending and everything. So ladies, they go beyond to what a guy will think to blend a cigar. Most of the guy will be, hey, I wanna blend a full body cigar, and this is what I want. Well, there are other ladies, hey, I would like to try a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And out of the couple that I have had the opportunity to talk after the cigar safari, it turns out that the ladies blend is the most complex ones out of the one that came out in that blending section. So to me, I have a lot of respect for them. Now, when it comes to in the marketing, which is the conversation that we are having right now, of course, every company, they do use marketing in different ways. At Drew Estate, we have never ever used a female image to sell a cigar. If the cigar is so dang good, the cigar will sell by itself. And the story that that cigar will bring, it will bring you the authenticity of what that company is all about, or what that product is all about. Right here in the Zoom call, I got a good dear friend of mine, Maria Jose. She's a top manager at Oliva Cigar Company, a very respectful company in Esteli. So I hope, Maria Jose, you are enjoying this conversation. She is from Esteli, you know, and you got those multinational companies that they are not just selling cigar in the United States. They are not just selling cigar in different countries in Europe, you know, or in Asia, in all those different places. But without the female talent at the factory, without the female talent at the farm, we will never have a good product to offer worldwide. And that will be my take on your question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Maria Jose is an amazing woman, an adorable woman, and we send her our best love and appreciation. She rocks. She simply rocks. Reinhard, over to you, my friend.
And right over to Rich Lai, who had a question for us.
Excellent.
Uh-oh.
Hi, guys. Hey, Pedro. Hey, JD.
Hey.
So I just have to reiterate that you are an East Coast company and we need some West Coast love. We need to get your butt over here to NorCal. That's the first thing. Second thing is congratulations on your legacy award. And I'm wondering, you still got a lot of years ahead of you and there's still some growth. You mentioned about going global with Drew Estate or doing more in the global space. But is there anything that you can, I guess, say or think of now and share with us that you'd like to do personally with the company or with it socially, not so much financially?
Yeah, Rich, we love you. And for those of you guys who don't know and gals who don't know Rich Lai, one of the most generous cigar smokers. I mean, everybody knows cigar smokers are very generous, not just with charities and stuff, but trading sticks and that feel of, you're together. I call it fellowship. And probably Rich, in all the history of our company of Drew Estate, Rich is the most generous guy. We love Rich Lai, and I'm so glad to see you tonight here, Rich. First and foremost, from a standpoint of this global conversation, I know tonight we have Ricardo with us, and I'm a huge fan. Obviously, we have our connection from the Nicaraguan standpoint, which we talk a lot about Nicaragua and where it's going and the struggle and the beauty. But one of the companies that I really love what you do and what Rich does, what Ricardo does, and I want to bring it up, is Diplomat Cigar Club. This is truly class. Lots of times we take a top-down approach to business and we say, what's the big vision? What's the 30,000 feet above? What are we looking at? And then on the other side, we match it with the bottom-up approach. And I love what you guys do with Diplomat Cigar Club, DCC, bringing Nicaragua, not just Nicaragua, but all the brands, but certainly that touch of it is also, for me, extra special. So I just wanted to say that because I think that this rise of cigar clubs that I see happening in the United States is interesting. Some of them are useful, some of them less. And just if a company is designed to create revenue, doesn't make it less useful. It's just an approach. So a big shout out to Diplomat. Secondly, in terms of your second part of your question or thought there, Rich, I still have a lot to contribute on the Drew Estate side and on the Nicaraguan journey side. I think now what came together in the late 90s and early 2000s, like I mentioned earlier, where the internet was really hard to imagine, right? That can you imagine the earliest stage, I forget the word I'm looking for infancy of the interweb. Now we're in 2.0 to 3.0. Certainly technology, certainly data and the use of analytics and data. We're a company who's always worked from a gut approach. Now I'm very much enjoying business intelligence and understanding it, not just from a standpoint of being able to blabber about it, but to really understand high-tech solutions to understanding your business, understanding the business, understanding where we are in the business and how we can grow it, reach more people, reach people who are from different cultures and from different, it's funny. I remember, you ever hear the term pioneers get slaughtered and settlers prosper? It's a very powerful term. lots of times you say, hey, I remember going to Europe and saying Liga Privada. They say, oh, no. Liga Privada has to be below the Cubans in price. And I said, don't worry about it. Liga Privada will be just fine above the Cubans in price. And I was right. We were right. But I think that those days are drifting. And I think that technology, business intelligence, data-driven approach, understanding your customer is going to be a big aspect that I'm going to be able to contribute in, even though that's not my core competency. I'm very much enjoying that space. And, there's a combination there between that and messaging. So when you really look at messaging and being able to get to somebody's heart, if you're trying so desperately, like Pedro was saying, we don't sell cigars to women. We don't have a brand that's a women's smoker, a long, skinny stick that's going to be, it's made for women. We don't do that. But we have the largest segment of women smokers who smoke Drew Estate cigars by far, and by a mile. So I'm not exactly sure, Rich, from a standpoint of this absolute, specificity, but whatever it is, it will be strategic. I often talk about Ricardo because I find I get a lot of inspiration from him. I think one of the times that might have shocked him is not in my commitments to Nicaragua, my commitments to Nicaraguan culture or to the brands and branding of Nicaragua, but in my sheer aggression. Life moves very fast, and you want to go everywhere, be everywhere, like savoir-faire, and be in people's bones, and really coming to terms with our limitations, being able to step back. I think that's right now a big part of where I have to learn to appreciate, life, and not so much from a standpoint of growing, and not just from a standpoint of business growth. But so for me, Rich, a lot of my growth is internal and not as much external. Externally, I've proven myself 1,000 times over, but internally, and becoming the best person I can be, and the son of Esther and Gary, and really developing a lot more as a human is really, for me, a very big part right now of my next tranche. And I think that, listening in a night like tonight, where we're the guest, I'm going to speak a lot for sure, and I recognize that. But my approach is really different now overall, and it's more Quran oriented, Torah oriented, biblically oriented, from a standpoint of listening is not always with your ears. It's with your heart, and it takes a lot of internal searching. So I hope to be playing a role at the company and of Nicaragua to some degree, of a role of the heart and affairs of the heart and the soul, as opposed to trying to be the king of technology or the most aggressive man on the block, but instead that internal journey. And that's, I think, the piece that I'll find, real peace, will be more appropriate for me there.
Amazing. Oh,
Ricardo, I believe you probably want to give us some of your thoughts as well, and we tremendously appreciate you being here with us. And JD pointed you out, so the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Reinhard, and it's incredibly rewarding to see so many brothers and sisters of the leaf, many familiar faces and many that not, but particularly great love to JD, to Jonathan and Pedro, as I know how I feel about them. So I have a quick comment, well, sort of quick. I'll try to make it quick, at least in as much as a Nicaraguan can be quick and brief, right? And share one more on a personal level, and then one more, perhaps taking more question into the topic of discussion today. And it's so incredible that I'm actually connecting here today from Nottingham, the land of Robin Hood, and the land of So there's something special about that connection of what you were able to go and grab from someone and give to the people that need it in many ways to your brand, Jonathan. But the first thing is, and I abuse your patience for this one because ultimately I'm just Ricardo. So now I used to be a diplomat. Now I'm a member of the cigar industry. And the first thing I want to say is that change in many ways, Jonathan, you bear a huge amount of responsibility on this change that I personally took to leave diplomacy behind, to leave government job behind, and go into jumping into this industry. And I clearly remember that moment where you kind of shook me in a good way into how direct you spoke, because you spoke from the heart. And you were able to transmit that energy and that love for what you do. And it's those moments that definitely shook me and helped me see where I needed to go in my personal path and where I think I can contribute the best for my country. And that is from this standpoint as another brother in the cigar industry. So you, sir, are very responsible for that. But one thing I wanted to mention is, and I think I've said this to you before, but I think it's really important to highlight that. And I'll do it through a small story, if I can, very brief, that I think sort of exemplifies the legacy that Jonathan Drew and Pedro and everybody in the Drew State family have given to Nicaragua. Because it's a lot more than the roads that have been paved. It's a lot more of having a city like Esteli, where there's literally basically zero unemployment, which is unheard of in our part of the world. It's a city that, in essence, is sort of the Silicon Valley of the cigar world. And he's been there since the very beginning, making that happen. But it's beyond that. And that is a complete shift in the paradigm of how us Nicaraguans, and I think there's a handful of us here in this call, I'm sure many more in all the different platforms, how we perceived ourselves and our country. And it's interesting because I left my country in 1998. So precisely when that intersection was coming into the boom and something special was emerging. So the first job I had when I left my country and I moved to Florida, to Miami, some of you will be familiar with the Kendall area. First, I live in Sweetwater, not far from where the fritangas that Pedro talked about is based. Then I move a little bit more west, looking towards the Everglades, towards the alligators. I don't love those animals. But anyhow, the first job was at Miami-Dade College. So a very international college. And I worked at the International Students Office. And it was interesting having seen all these people coming in. And the first thing a student would say as they walk in, these young people, the Mexicans will come in and say, hey, I'm Mexican. What do I need to do to study here? Hey, I'm Brazilian. What do I need to do to study here? I'm Cuban. Well, almost everyone is Cuban around, right? But the Nicaraguans at that stage, more often than not, didn't say, I'm Nicaraguan. I don't want to study here. So it's interesting. My generation, in many ways, was kind of, to an extent, almost a bit disenfranchised to where we were. We had just come from a civil war. We're kind of finding out what's going to be our destiny. What do we have to build upon? And it's interesting how, I'm sure if I was to get that job back now, and I sit in there and people come in, I bet the Nicaraguans now, more than ever, the level of pride that we've been able to get our own selves as a country and as people is completely flipped, this head completely turned around. And they will be the first, like the loudest one saying, I'm Nicaraguan, I want to study here, what do I need to do? So that to me speaks what you've been able to achieve and what your legacy will be. And I think many of us will never forget that. And I think the symbol of what Drew State is and the connection with New York and Nicaragua and the future of Nicaragua, if I was to think of one archetype, of one symbol, and I told you this, Jonathan, before, that's the bridge. You are the bridge. Drew State has been that bridge. Nicaragua, before the great Columbus came in, we were the bridge between the North and the South. And I think we have become the conveyor, the bridge through the new world cigar world and the rest of the universe of cigars. And that's our future. I think we continue being the bridge between the North and the South, the Asia and Europe and the rest of the world. And I think that's what a good New Yorker from the city bridges has been fundamental in hammering down and getting those bridges built. And that's where we Nicaraguans, and not my generation or Pedro, we're getting too old now. The next ones will be able to really walk and go on. So I think this is really, really powerful. And in a special vocation like this one in Puro Sabor couldn't be any more appropriate. So for that, sir, you know how much you will always be remembered and thanked for all of us. It's incredible. So that's the philosophical, personal, long story, novella, soap opera side of it. My heart being spilled out in a call, very inappropriately. But then the other part is, I think, more, so in the marketing side, and I live with that one. The one thing that I love, and I thank you for mentioning the Diplomatic Cigar Club, because that's something that you've been able to help since the very inception, come with the ideas of creating this brand in the UK that sort of targeting a very specific audience through a very special storytelling, where today, if you go to one of the most exclusive venues in London, like the Arts Club, which I think there's one around the Middle East as well.
Yep.
One of the only few cigars you would find alongside a huge selection of Cuban cigars is Liga Privada at a price that is above most of the Cubans. So, sir, that what you said is prophetically taking place in London. But I'm curious, and I've heard you speak about marketing and sales and those dynamics and how you as an organization create something really special that I really, really admire coming from other industries in my past. Is that how you see that intersection between that marketing translated into sales and the dynamics between both teams? I think many companies get a little bit confused, or they don't talk to each other as they should, and they're essential to each other. So how do you think, in terms of, if you were to sort of articulate a bit how your strategy and your philosophy of the marketing, the pulling, the pushing, and the cashing in element of it works out? Would love for you to, if you can, share a little bit about that, Jonathan. But thank you. Gracias, hermano.
Siempre, chaval. So, yeah, pull and push marketing, it's very easy to mix them up. My perspective on them is not exactly right or correct. There's people even who I work with who have slightly different and in a couple of cases very different thoughts as to what's pull and what's push. Strictly from a marketing perspective, because I do know tonight is obviously a marketing evening. You've had so many guests on. I think this is the 7th episode or segment or session, and you covered so many topics. So I do realize that marketing tonight, it was very appropriate to have Pedro and myself on, joining you and us. The difference really between pull and push is very important, especially for cigars. Drew Estate we've always skipped the retailer. So it's not because, Drew Estate doesn't respect the retailers, that we organically, from the beginning, spoke directly to the consumer. So when we speak to you, the consumer, there's no like, hey, we have to go to the store. We have to tell the store, hey, you got to push our cigars. Here's what you get when you do this. And here's what you get when you do that. And that whole concept of that trade marketing side of it, we never, ever did that. This is very new phenomenon and important. And we're starting to do it very well. But as a company, we always were consumer driven. Our message, our events, the way we speak, our tonality was always directly from us to the consumer, direct. Parting the sea, like Moses, to the consumer, our fan, our base. From that perspective, pull is when a consumer comes to the store and a consumer says, do you have Underground? Do you have Liga Privada Feral Flying Pig? And the retailer then says, I have it, I don't have it, I didn't even know it exists, what is it? And we used to get a lot of calls from our sales guys, pissed off. How come I found out about the Dojo Dogma from the consumer, and the retailer would be like, how come I didn't know about it? I have guys coming to my store asking for these cigars. I don't even know what they are. And we were like, yeah, well, you better buy them or you're going to lose your customer. And they would go, yeah, send me 5 boxes, whatever it is. So that's true pull. But people talk about that without understanding the sacrifices to do that. Pedro, myself, others, going and doing events for, I was supposed to be there 3 hours, being there 9 hours, and Detective Walk-In Chin and my dad lowering me into a car because I can't bend my back, and walking for 10 years with a cane, 5 out of 7 days, 4 out of 7 days. Those hugs, going to people's houses when I was too tired, inviting 30 screaming lunatic, fat sweating white dudes to a hamburger event after a Drew Estate event, when you're so exhausted, but you know how much it means to them to be there, you wind up having a great time. On your drive to the hotel, you're saying, I shouldn't have done that. I can't walk. I literally am in the hospital 4, 5, 6 times a year of exhaustion. And not just me. That type of mentality of our core competencies or our core sacrifices at your estate led to a lot of pull marketing. Push marketing, on the other hand, is way more convenient. It's way more structured. It's more programmatic. And it's quite honestly very effective. And that's where you say, buy any box of cigars and you're going to get this cutter and this lighter and this thing for free. And that's just one aspect of push marketing. But we're learning that now. And we have people at the company who are very good at it so I think that there's low hanging fruit there. I think that it's an and not an or, and that crossroads of where pull marketing and push. I always talk, and we always talk at Drew Estate about sell in, sell out, and pull. Sell it to the store, sell it out of the store, and have pull. I never quite understood that. It still isn't in my brain clear, even though it doesn't mean it's not important, and even though it doesn't mean that we don't do it well, it's not where I live. I live in pull, sell in, sell out. The demand is created. You sell it into the store and sell it out of the store. That's it. It's the opposite way. And it's something that a firebrand, which is what Drew Estate is, that becomes organic from a pull side, because it's that natural tendency for people to look for a product and desire it and call 5 or 7 or 9 stores before they find it. I think, Ricardo, from the Nicaraguan side, we're reaching a state of pull. I think people are walking into cigar shops in Germany. I think people are walking into cigar shops in Belgium. They're walking into cigar shops in China. And they're saying, I want to try a Nicaraguan cigar. And the store owner's going, oh, we specialize in Cuban because we're Casa del Habano. And they're going, all right, check you later. Adios. And then the owner goes, yo, maybe we should get some of those Nicaraguan cigars in here. What do you recommend? That's what's happening. And when that unstoppable force takes place, it's organic. That's true pull marketing. So I think that we're in that crossroads for Nicaragua. And I think that creates something that's where my conviction stands from a standpoint of why I believe Nicaragua is growing. And I think for the Dominican Republic, it's very interesting because when I look at the Cuban Cigar Festival, the Nicaraguan Cigars Festival, and we looked at those, Pedro, myself, Marielos, as we started to like create the Nicaraguan Cigar Festival, we looked at like the best attributes of the Cuban Cigar Festival. That is a gala of like, do you know, what's that Hilton girl? Huh?
Paris Hilton.
Paris Hilton.
Yeah.
Did you know that Paris Hilton was a paid guest at the Cuban Cigar Festival? And she gave a 30 minutes, and then they had a flyer out on a, and this is just in my opinion, I don't want to say. That's very interesting. Paris Hilton is, what's up? Paris Hilton is at the Cuban Cigar Festival, paid. We don't do that really, Nicaragua. Our tobacco speaks for itself. The stories resonate, and the pull behind it is unstoppable, undeniable, and only at the very beginning of the story. So a corporate approach from a push standpoint is good. It's fair game, and any company who's good at it can build their business platform on it. Our platform, I think, both for Drew Estate and for Nicaragua, is much more of a pull platform.
Thank you, Jonathan, for the answer. And if I can just finish with one comment on my end is, people always ask me in my previous role, in my current role, what is the one thing that Nicaragua has? And they say, why do I need to go there? Because the pull is so strong. And I saw it today going to a retailer called Gauntleys in the streets of Nottingham. And it's the Nicaraguan cigars they're asking for to change from Cubans to Nicaraguans, right? But they say, what is the one thing about Nicaragua that I want to go visit? Why is it? I say, you know what it is? Is that authenticity. You go there, and the people making their tortillas, they're making them not to give you a show. The people doing the cigars, they're not giving you a show. That's their life. And to see that life, Nicaragua can give you that. Very, very few countries can give you that so real and raw and authentic. And that's our secret sauce, I think, to our success. That's our marketing secret sauce, I suppose, is our rawness and authenticity.
Brilliant comment. Valerie, please,
yes.
Raise your question or make your comment.
Thank you. And I 100% understand what Jonathan is saying when he says that he's very tired after some of his events, because I have watched him at work, and you are a marvel. And at one event, I couldn't figure out how to take a selfie, and you took a moment to show me how to take a selfie. And for me, it was like Picasso giving me art lessons, because there's nobody better than you. And I really admire what your company does in terms of swag. You'll see behind me, I've got, several pieces of my Drew Estate swag. And I think that, influencers, and you mentioned one earlier, but I think influencers enjoy getting that swag. And I think Drew Estate does get a lot of mileage out of their swag. And I thank you for that. But my question goes back to the segmentation of the market. And we talked about female smokers and male smokers. But if we were to do the math and we say, 25%, 1 in 4 cigar smokers is female, there's a segment that is overlooked, and that is the gay population. And if 1 in 4 people is gay, that's another 25% of the market. Then we have to consider, I think, also the gender neutral aspect of the population. That theoretically leaves maybe 25% of the population being male, a large percentage of which is in the 50+ demographic. Where does Drew Estate see itself in terms of marketing to all of those, segments? I'm thinking, specifically, none of the cigar producers have really acknowledged, for instance, things like the anniversary of Stonewall, where the gay community rose up. And, the cigar culture has a lot of gay individuals who are, they're fond of tobacco and they're fond of cigars. But as a producer, you've done a very good job of remaining neutral, and I admire you for that. But do you see that changing in the future?
So from a standpoint of changing, change is incredible. First of all, just change. We grow up. I grew up. You hear that word, change. Whoa, that's what I want. I want change. The next guy, gal, says, we're not going to change. We're not going to change from our roots. We're not going to change from this goodness. Change is bad. Change is an emblem of extinction. Shepard Fairey, one of the greatest pop kind of artists out there, like a Banksy guy. I'm a fan of, like, it's not what my core stuff that I collect, but I've always liked what he's done and what he represents. He did the Obama face, that painted face of Obama, and underneath it, this was a crazy thing that happened. He wrote change. I forget what it was, but it went back and forth. It was very, very interesting. Change happens. When we sold our company and Swisher International purchased us, people said, oh, Drew Estate's going to change. And I said, yeah, we are going to change. Because we changed before they purchased us. We change all the time. So we're going to change after they purchase us. And we'll be around, from a basis of change, I think there's change regarding your core values. And I'm very proud to report that Drew Estate is based, more than any other characteristic about our company, is based in freedom. The Acid brand, when I'm writing now with the gang, creating these, what we call brand identification, brand ID suites, brand identity suites. You're starting off with the brand long story, brand short story, brand essence, brand attributes, brand tone of voice, brand tagline, brand subdescription, blah, 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 blah. And I'm an old man. I'm over here rewriting and editing this stuff and doing. And look at the Acid brand, our really first big brand. This brand is in the quadrillions of dollars. I don't know. The brand is about, and the brand identity is about freedom. But when you think about a company with the largest sales force of women, with brands, both in our brand segmentation, everything about Drew Estate is diverse, and diversity is the platform behind freedom. So from that standpoint, I definitely expect change. We'll embrace change. There'll be change of conservative movement. There'll be change of liberal movement. But I feel very strongly that the core values of the company, based on diversity and based on freedom, when we launched Acid, we had an African-American sitting on a motorcycle with his dreadlocks flying. That's what the Acid brand is, America's biggest brand, started off as America's smallest brand. And we were told everywhere, not here. Ain't gonna that. And we were like, don't worry, this brand, and we slowly, and then it happened. And I remember those moments. It was a very short period of time. And it wasn't good people or bad people. It was just people are just people. And some people are conservative and stressed out or this or that. But quickly, people accepted it. And it changed the cigar industry. We talked a lot tonight about women and women's involvement in the cigar industry. What about brothers, African Americans? For Drew Estate to throw a Rastafarian on the front, and then you open the box and there's a dreadlock brother? Let me tell you, that was a shocker. That's what's called a category killer. Category killer. it really was a shocker to the premium cigar industry, and it taught us an incredibly valuable lesson that people are generally and inherently good, and we all have tendencies for the bad, and we have good and bad. Those are forces that are within every one of us. I don't care who you are, even my mother. But I believe in my heart that people are generally good, and I think acid cigars is the emblem of change for the premium cigar industry. Show me another has done anything similar to that. It was kind of odd, and it's a silhouette, but you can see. And yeah, so that's an example of, I think, some of the core values that we represent, and some of the things that Pedro spoke on tonight. Yesenia is a great example of it. In terms of something very interesting to discuss is segmentation of the population, demographic segmentation, conceptual lens, future mapping, and really being able to look at the population as a whole in a very macro sense, not macroeconomic, but sociologically macro. I didn't know the breakdown of who's what, but I can tell you this. So many times I have said, I'm lived in Nicaragua for 14 and a half years full-time, 19 years where I was there over 300 days a year. I had to drive to Honduras a zillion times because you can only stay there 3 months and drive back so I can not be thrown out of the country or something. Not that they'd throw me out, but I did that. And many times I've said that Drew Estate is the Obama of the cigar industry. I'm on record for saying it. I can't get in trouble for saying it. I'm not in fear of saying it, because Obama, he may not have had the center of white people are good people, black people are good people, gay people are good people, people are people. All genders are good people. We all know that. Decent people know that. But for us, the reward was we were never that like Macanudo brand, which I look up to for a lot of reasons, that was, American sports, like the baseball stadium, and the advertisements would be like father and son at the baseball stadium, and they're smoking a Macanudo. It's right down the middle, mainstream, status quo, what we spoke about in the beginning of the conversation. We were made of all these little pockets. The lesbian community, huge part of True Estate's community, huge. All of it. I mean, even like I say, fat, sweating white dudes in Michigan and in Chicago. We love them. They love us. They stand in line 3 hours and 5 hours, and they come to Nicaragua, and that's what we are. We've always been the Obama of the cigar industry, and I've said that for many, many years. It's nothing new, and it's built on diversity. It's built on being from New York. You can be from anywhere in the world and be a racist, or you can be from anywhere in the world and be a bigot, or you can be anywhere from the world and be Mother Teresa from a standpoint of, there's only one Mother Teresa, but be open-hearted. And I think for us, being in the melting pot, being in New York, my ex-wife's brother used to say, you think that the center of the world is Esteli, Nicaragua. And I remember that year, it was probably 10, 12 years ago, they bought me for Christmas, Aventura, the Aventura album, the biggest album at the time from the Dominican Republic, which is bachata. I'm a huge bachata fan, bachata and grupero and pleno, and I like reggaeton and salsa and stuff, but really like bachata. And I think now at this point, the diversity of smokers, I can tell you that in the cigar industry anyway, in the United States, I always differentiate between the cigar industry and the cigar culture. They're very easy to overlap them because they do overlap to some degree, but they're not exactly mutually the same. And the culture of the cigar industry at this point is refreshing, inexplicable. There's Black-owned cigar bars. Pedro's done events in them where they're just like Black ownership, incredibly proud of it, and used that platform to promote diversity. So I think that today, here in the Wynwood Safe House, where I am right now, it's all kind of dark, but you can't see it as I show you a little. But Frank Moreno, who's our pairing ambassador here at Drew Estate for booze and cigars, we have a show every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock called Sticks and Sips. It's a good show. It's a boozy, fun time, a very fun show. And yeah, Frank and I were talking a little bit tonight just about, I was asking him, have you guys ever heard the term master blender in the cigar industry?
Every day.
You heard that word before? Did you ever
Yeah.
see, where did that start? What was the genesis? Who was the genesis who made that up? Where did that, they've been saying that for 60 years. No, I made that shit up. And it was built on a platform of the master distiller. And I asked Frank, I said, Frank, in the world of master distilling, a company like Diageo, one of these big booze companies who have verticals, vodka, whiskey, bourbon, Campari style products, so many variety, gin, all of these different things. Do they have master distiller for each one of those segments at their company? And the answer was no. That they have master blenders for like rum, master distiller more on the whiskey side. Some brands and products too small, they don't have them. I said, what is the strongest trend? This was today, God is my witness conversation. He said the biggest trend in the master distiller segment in the United States, if we even got that far into the specificity of it, was the women master distillers. And I know that because my friend Maggie is now the president of the Women Bourbon Association, but I didn't realize how many. So I think that the world is just changing in so many ways for the worst, and in so many ways for the best, and in so many ways that what we think is the worst is the best, and what we thought was the best will be the best or not be the best. But the algorithm of the new paradigm is really yet, it's unseen, and it will always be unseen, so unknown. So my thought on a final note would be this. In the cigar industry, more diversity is coming. More diversity will be expected and anticipated. And I think Nicaragua represents a very strong path to, reflection-wise, in terms of not just Yesenia, but many of the women who've helped grow the industry and who lead there. Sarah Gonzalez, who is a grade 7 roller who works for Perdomo, who emigrated from Cuba to Nicaragua. And at the time when I was living in Nick Perdomo Sr.'s house, God rest his soul, at that moment, there was a number of Cubans who had come in from Nicaragua. A number of Cubans living in Nicaragua. I'm talking 1998. And even before I moved there, I started really going there 97, 96, 97. And I remember us being so poor, we would open a can of honey and pour it into a bowl, and that would be our dessert after dinner. And I remember that night so specifically, and listening to Sarah Gonzalez telling us about Cuba and things there that she's gone through. So I really see a platform that's there. I don't personally cheer more if it's a woman or if it's a male or if it's a gay person or a anybody. I just like to see that all the channels are open and the respect level is high, and diversity being promoted. So, you know, these kind of conversations, these kind of topics are very touchy. I think that it takes a lot of courage to discuss them. And I'm glad that we shared that courage tonight, Valerie, and thank you. It was it's an important topic, and I hope we continue to think through it and not perfect it, because that's a longer journey, but to definitely put it as part of our key considerations as we move forward.
Thank you.
Jonathan, if we take everything that you just said and the bigger picture into consideration, you spoke about the 30,000 feet above perspective. You spoke about the inevitable nature of change. You spoke about everything that you did and that you continue to do being so deeply grounded in core values and the culture that you created that truly is the essence of the storytelling and marketing, if you will, of Drew Estate. Do you think that with all the unpredictability you have brought to the table, that marketing and storytelling still is something that has to be just deeply rooted in that, or is it always an ever-evolving process where you have to change, adapt, and renew your messaging, the voice that you speak with, and the marketing approach that you take?
Let's just for a moment take a step back and think about the word harmony. I went through law school, Brooklyn Law School. I graduated number 7 in the class from the bottom, which means I was the worst out of 185 kids. That's not a joke. The word harmony is not best found in contract. It's best found in predictability. You can have all the paper in the world signed by all sorts of people. That doesn't necessarily bring harmony. But predictability is the greatest gatekeeper of harmony. I really think that what Apple does when they've created something absolutely incredible, what they do is destroy it. It's called planned obsolescence. That's really where you're able to planned obsolescence. That's where you're able to create world-class, game-changing, whatever it is, and then plan to destroy it. That is biblical. That is rebirth. The cornerstone of destroy to rebuild is planned obsolescence. And that's that nexus between harmony, predictability, change. Putting those together is what life is about. If every day you woke up in the morning, had your coffee or your tea, and had the exact same day every single day, I can't speak for anybody else. Might be the greatest life in the world. Maybe it's not. But we're really just, I think, from a standpoint of culture, one of the cornerstones of culture is pain. I grew up that the cornerstone of culture is your food. That's why I'm obese. I'm constantly eating and in Weight Watchers and walking on the beach and trying to lose my fatness, because I love my parents. Anybody who knows me knows that. But I was taught that culture was about eating and music and drinking, not booze necessarily, but taste. But really, there's so much pain in culture. It's the pain that makes us hardened. That's really the galvanizing core in culture comes from what you had to go through, as Ricardo says, to bridge to the other side. Moses separating the Red Sea. So we can't remove anything. Predictability, harmony, pain, everything. It's really, I think we're at a world now where everything is global from a standpoint of connectivity. You're able to see what's going on anywhere in the world quickly. And I think that, it's okay. Obviously, genocides and things like that, take that out of the mix. None of that shit's okay. But from a standpoint of, we can't make everything perfect. It's just not going to be perfect. And from that imperfection becomes the most beautiful things. Most of the advances at Drew Estate came from disasters. Most of the leaps into innovation came from mistakes. Turning your negatives and your failure into positives and opportunity, that's where we live. That's being able to accept the cards you're dealt and make them better. And I think Nicaragua, if there's any place in the world that I've experienced, and I've been around the world pretty good, not everywhere because I haven't been to the Middle East yet, and that's a shame.
We're waiting for you.
Huh?
We're waiting for you.
Well, we're coming. P, you with me?
Oh,
Pedro.
Let's do it, man. Come on, man. Who doesn't want to be in Dubai?
Hey, listen, I have to get ready to start packing up, but I want to tell you guys just for a quick moment, as I know I've done a lot of speaking tonight, and I enjoy these opportunities to share about our company, and I get to mix in a little bit about our journey and my journey. And I know you guys do this there's such a cast of characters in the cigar biz. So many wackos like myself that have these crazy stories and interesting things. But I just want to take a minute to say that tonight, it was a real pleasure to be with everybody. And for me, doing this tonight with Pedro, and for you guys to see what I consider a person who probably changed my life and so many people's life in Nicaragua far more than I did. I know that I helped bring economic freedom and economic opportunity, but something that goes much deeper to the heart is something that Pedro does and continues to do. Pedro Gomez is our factory spokesman for a reason. We do nothing that's not purposeful at Drew Estate. I don't speak French, but I do say something that you're all going to laugh at me. I say raison d'être, which is, I know raison d'être is not the way you're supposed to, because I do not speak French. But it means reason to be. And I'll just conclude tonight that Pedro is the essence of what Drew Estate is about. Young man who worked so hard to go to the United States to get a scholarship. And after having his college degree and attaining his college degree in the United States and job offers and business opportunities to do in the United States, returns back to Esteli, becomes part of us at Drew Estate there. It didn't happen in the United States. We didn't meet him. I didn't know who he was in the United States. And then to move up so high in the company, get his citizenship here in the United States. He's a dual citizen. Obviously, he's incredibly proud of Nicaragua on that side as well. So many people at the factory look up to Pedro. And I don't ever get political because I'm not that guy. I get philosophical because I am that son of my parents. And Pedro is the living testament of heart and soul. So I just want to say that tonight, I dedicate my 25 years and our 25 years of what I believe is excellence to this man who I'm just so proud. So for everybody to get to know this guy, believe me when I tell you, it is an honor to work with him and to partner with him. And I've always said, someday. So my man Pedro, thank you for being.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
I love you.
Thank you, man. Thank you, everybody that came to the event. Thank you, Jonathan, for all the wisdom that you were sharing with us. It was also great questions. We were touching different points in this conversation. You guys are lighting up. What a great show. You guys have hosted so many great people from the industry. And I'm very sure that a lot of people up there truly appreciate your show. And they look forward every week that you got a show going on, especially when you have people like your show. So everybody stay smoky. Thank you so very much for this opportunity. This one was Drew Stein, and we're looking forward to see you guys very soon.
Excellent.
Thank you guys so very much for this opportunity. And God bless Nicaragua and our Nicaraguan families. And for all of you tuning tonight, thank you again.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
You take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro.
What an epic segment. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us today for the 7th live show of Puro Sabor 2021, the virtual Nicaraguan Cigar Festival, together with Jonathan Drew, Pedro Gomez Rodriguez, and the one and only Ryan from the Leaf Masters in Dubai. We'll see you all again in 2 weeks from today. And until then, all the very best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and light them up. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Good night,
Good
all.
night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Moving experience tonight.